Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host.
J to the motherfucking T.
Yeah!
I don't know. I was just watching like clips of Snoop Dogg at the Olympics, and I felt like J to the motherfucking T was about the right way to go about introducing myself tonight.
I need a
So,
water bong now.
dude, it is so funny. I loved having him at the Olympics. He became the real mascot of the Olympics in the best way possible. And
Hell yeah.
it was so interesting because I heard that he invited Martha Stewart because they're friends, and only
Yeah.
one of them's been to jail. That's what I love, and it's not Snoop. But he invited her to commentate on dressage, the horses,
Yeah.
primarily because Snoop is scared of horses, and Martha knows her way around them. And I thought that was just flippin' adorable. Um,
Although I did get a really good laugh. I don't know if maybe it was the last Olympics or some other horse event that him and someone else was doing some play-by-play
oh,
for.
him and Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart, they were like, that horse is crip walking.
Yes. So
I'm like,
here's what's
oh my
great.
God.
Snoop became so much more involved actually at the Olympics, right? And Kevin Hart joined with Keenan to do that commentary. And it's rated M, and they did like 8 episodes of commentary about the Olympics. I've only seen like the first 20 minutes of the first episode, and I was cracking the hell up. I
Yeah.
recommend it already for anybody because it's still on there.
Yeah.
But really flippin' funny. Really funny.
That's too funny. All right. Well, we finally
I'm
said
gonna go get my
goodbye.
passport.
Yeah. We finally gotten past the bullying theme and we're moving on to hometown crimes. Part 2, because we've already done hometown crimes once. I'm not sure if you were with the podcast yet at the
Right.
time. I don't
Yeah,
remember
I
when it was.
was.
Okay,
I
there we go.
was because I did the Briley gang, the Briley brothers, I think, from Richmond.
Oh, okay.
Um,
There we
I
go.
think it was the Briley brothers.
I don't know. We
But
could look. We could.
it feels like forever ago. Every time I think that was like 6 months ago, it was actually like 2.5 years ago. Time has no
Right?
meaning in podcasting, no meaning
Well, especially
whatsoever.
since 2020.
Yeah. 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 I had to like remind myself that it's been 4 years for both you and True Crime and Wine Time.
Yeah.
So and
Crazy.
still put up with me, so here we are.
Exactly. All right. Well, it's my turn. So the title for my case is Drugs, Alcohol, Psychiatric Issues, and a Rifle. What could go wrong?
All the things. Literally all the things.
All the things, right?
Good grief.
So our shithead in this case went all over the province and over into Alberta as well. But the crimes, the major crimes in this happened in Burnaby. And I decided to pick a beer from a brewery in Burnaby. And it made it pretty
Aha.
easy because there's only 2 breweries here now. There was 3, one closed. Inflation hurts.
Yeah.
So I'm drinking a beer from Daggerad Brewing, or Daggerad, however you want to say it. They are a Belgian-inspired brewery here in Burnaby.
Hmm.
And this is called Anti-Goon, which is great because this guy's a bit of a goon.
Antigoon.
And it's a
I like that.
Belgian-style strong golden ale, 9% alcohol. Um, it is very pretty.
Oh, that is pretty.
It's like a little bit hazy. It's kind of a golden color, nice fluffy white head. A lot of these Belgian golden, like they've got this like kind of sweetness and sugariness on the nose. It's almost like a candy sugar, a little bit fruity, and it drinks kind of weirdly both sweet and dry. It hits you kind of sweet, but then it
Mhm.
just like dries out. Like the sweetness just goes away really quickly.
Hmm.
Um, Not a ton of fruity flavor. It's weirdly easy drinking at 9% alcohol. Maybe it's just me, probably just me. But yes, it's a very good beer. I was blown away that a 4-pack of this only costs $16 plus tax right now at the brewery,
Oh,
which is
wow.
insane. That's really good
Yeah.
for style of beer like this. let's move on to the shithead that we're going to talk about.
Oh, aren't they all?
Yes, most of them. All right. Womp womp. Angus David Mitchell was born around 1986, and he would have been 26 when he died.
Okay.
He would have 5 siblings. He would grow up in Vernon, a city of about 44,000 people today. The city
Well,
is
there's your problem.
located right. The city is located on the northern end of Okanagan Lake and Kalamalka Lake. It is basically sandwiched between both of the two lakes on the south side of the city.
One thing is for sure. You learn to spell real fast in that spot because what you just said, no idea.
I'm going to send you a picture of Kalamalka Lake.
Gesundheit.
It is gorgeous.
Kakalaki.
Yeah, that's
Kakalaki
it.
Lake. I'm sure I'm
Okay.
offending somebody.
Probably. Everyone else, just look it up. It's gorgeous.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's even an overcast day, and that water is turquoise.
And this is a picture of Okanagan Lake from Vernon, Tourism Vernon. So these are the two lakes that the south end of the city is sandwiched between.
That one's not turquoise, but it's gorgeous. That first place,
Kalamalka?
go home water, you're drunk. You belong in the Caribbean.
That's Glacier Till in there, Glacial Till. Okanagan Lake is massive. Kalamalka is a lot smaller. Probably why it still has that Glacial Till like turquoise color, but gorgeous.
Sure.
So he had a good upbringing in a wealthy family. They lived in a $3 million house on the shore of Okanagan Lake. His grandfather had owned a Caterpillar equipment dealership until 1989 when he sold it.
It became a butterfly.
Yeah. Oh, that's what they should call all used Caterpillar machines, butterflies.
Butterflies. It's brilliant.
It really is, and I never thought of it before. So he wanted it for nothing and was involved in a lot of sports from the sounds of it. He also loved to play piano and got good grades to boot. Fortunately, things would start to go bad once he was in high school. He found he had a love for drugs, and his school and sports became uninteresting. And I mean, school was uninteresting. I still tried to get good grades, but I hated it. But there's
I was the
ways
nerd
to go.
I was the nerd. I enjoyed it. And in fact, I still enjoy it and miss it because it just seemed to make more sense than real life.
I miss the less responsibilities. Adulting is really fucking stupid.
It really,
but I don't miss school though.
They sure as fuck don't make it easy on us these days. That's for sure.
I miss summer holidays is what I miss.
Yeah, we really should implement that across the board. Just do alternating holidays and then have people who do holiday A, holiday B, and then that way people are still working. It's just
I agree. I agree.
Sense.
So he found a new group of friends who all partook in drugs and drank alcohol, which isn't so crazy, but things would spiral into stealing money and breaking into cars.
Of course.
I have to wonder if his brother Peter could have been involved with getting him into drugs, as he was sought on a province-wide warrant for drug trafficking in 2008. So I don't know if it's an older or younger brother. There's very little information about his family in general, on purpose, I think. But Angus would be in and out of drug rehab and different schools on and off. He would end up in trouble in the neighboring province of Alberta when he was jailed for threatening a man with a knife, as well as stealing alcohol and breaking car windows.
Were they Cub Scouts?
Who knows?
I'm just throwback to the last episode.
Yeah. His father, David Mitchell, was a former lawyer and would help getting the charges stayed, as he didn't want him to have a criminal record. While often this is probably the right thing to do for a lot of things when they're children, this was definitely the wrong move in hindsight. But
Yeah,
I mean, you don't want to think your child is a bad person, right? You just don't.
you don't.
Even if
No,
you
of
know
course
your
not.
kid is, you don't want to think it.
No, no. I mean, my little one's prone to become a psychopath, but I don't want to believe it. I'm kidding.
Uh,
I'm just kidding.
which
It's
one?
listen, the little
One or
one,
two. One or
it's
two.
it's two. It's all the dead squirrels in the back. I just assume it's I'm just still kidding. Still kidding for the FBI agent listening right now.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
joke,
Or the RCMP officer.
right? Well, I'm not so much worried about the Mounties right now.
They might talk to the FBI though. It's our
Ugh, a little
equivalent,
more
right?
worried. Okay, blanket statement. Just kidding. Internationally blanket statement. Ich bin kidding.
You're kidding. Things would change on the family front, though, in 2010 when he began to send threatening emails to his dad and his sister.
Hmm, that's a turn.
Beyond just being angry, there was death threats.
You can't.
So his dad would reach out to the RCMP and try to get psychiatric help for him.
Mhm.
But, quote, everybody said we needed a triggering event. We need some precipitating event which would allow the court to order him to have this assessment, he said. I wondered what that triggering event would be. I thought it would be a common assault situation. And of course, the horror look, what happens.
Wouldn't a threatening letter making death threats be a triggering situation? Like, that should be enough
It should be. It should
to at
be.
least look into it.
No.
Ugh.
So this is when the family finally broke off all contact from Angus. But let's back up a little bit here. Angus would make his way over to Metro Vancouver area and then over to Victoria on Vancouver Island. He would actually go to a counselor between July to December 2005 and again May to October in 2006.
And it was clear to the counselor that Angus had beef with everyone.
Ah! Roasted.
Just so tired of hoofing around the problem. He
What a
just listened.
mistake.
He just milked it. He just milked it. It was just too much. It was a spotty story and just it was utter failure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Oh, man. Yep. All right. Well, he would be diagnosed with mental health issues and substance abuse issues and would spend time living in a shelter in Vancouver. A psychiatrist at BC Children's Hospital in their concurrent disorders program was quoted as saying, he was foggy headed, had no social skills, had trouble relating to people, and suffered from depression and personality disorder.
That's
So,
incredible.
not good, right?
No, I mean to go from interested in sports and all the in social and things like this, obviously drugs, right? But
And
like
alcohol, yeah.
in alcohol, but there's still a person in there that's probably
Yeah.
wants the same thing, but to have that unlock a whole nother side of him is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, I've heard of people in general that a lot of mental health issues don't show up when you're really young.
That's
They
true.
come out when
That's
you're
true.
older, right?
Yeah.
Even like schizophrenia and stuff, usually something that comes out more like after puberty and stuff. But if you're prone to those things, drugs can sometimes be the trigger that knocks them off, right?
Right.
So you might not show any signs, and then you go smoke some joints with some friends and shit, and that could be the trigger to unlock those, predestined mental health issues that you've got lying in wait, unfortunately.
Right. Oh,
And it's never your fault, but it's your responsibility to deal with them.
correct.
This guy didn't.
I'm getting that feeling, my friend.
Yes. In June of 2011, Angus would apply for his PAL license, or possessions and acquisitions license, what you would call a firearms license.
No. 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 You obviously didn't give that to him.
Part of this license has you give two persons for reference, and neither were checked.
You gave it to stop pulling in America.
If he had gone
Stop
for a
it.
restricted license, such as handguns, these references would absolutely have been checked. And when you go for a restricted license, they also check your previous partners. I forget how far back they go. And if any of them say they were worried about you, you wouldn't get your license.
So,
But with
so
just the
he,
basic one, it's easier.
so he went for the basic one, right? What
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the difference between the basic one and the other?
Long guns, like shotguns, rifles, that kind of thing. Hunting weapons, basically.
Hunting versus pistols?
Yeah, yeah, more or
Okay,
less. And
all right.
then there's a level of restricted firearms, certain types of rifles, and all that kind of thing that are still legal but restricted.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So his license was actually flagged at first, but then would be issued in September. So at first they were just like, I don't know, and then things were worked out, and he got his license. So August 8th, 2011, he would come to the attention of the police again as he would threaten and assault a woman and her child in a baby stroller.
What?
So this is a snippet from the Vancouver Sun article. Yeah, right? So, quote, this unknown but highly agitated male ran up from behind to a mother and young daughter and shoved aside her stroller containing a 3-month-old baby inside, and then pushed the baby's mother, causing her to be in great fear for her safety of herself and her children, the Bolton said, which no fucking shit.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah. So amazingly, the victim was able to snap a photo of her attacker, which she attached to the bulletin. It shows the deranged looking and shirtless man, which is Angus.
On brand.
Yeah. And again, right? Like, he was not well. He was probably either both drunk and high or one or the other. And that mixture is terrible.
Probably looked like ground chuck. Just eventually the puns will end. Eventually I will stop with the puns.
Eventually. So I guess I don't know if his welcome was worn out in the shelters in Vancouver or whatever, but he'd make his way over to Victoria on Vancouver Island for a short time, where he would get a job as a security guard somehow.
Oh, where he could tell everybody to move over.
Yes. He would then lose the job in December of 2011 as he threatened someone while off duty, still in his work uniform.
Yeah. I'm not a very smart man.
And then after he was fired, he would threaten his former boss, and there'd be a no contact order issued.
It's like the plot of Joker.
Angus is Joker.
Shit. I was just kind of kidding.
I didn't even really put that together, but he is Joker. February 7th, 2012 would see Angus buy a Mossberg 30-06 at a local gun store.
Great.
He would take the bus with the gun in a case to a walk-in medical clinic in Saanich, where a nurse would stop him. After a bit of an argument, he would agree to hand over the gun for the visit, where they would store it in a locked room.
Okay.
Well, with the doctor, the nurse called the police to report the incident.
Good call.
He would tell the doctor that his back hurt, and he would say that he had been poisoned by mercury.
That's like you can verify that with a test.
Yeah. So the doctor would tell the police that he was likely suffering from a mental health break and was walking around the street with a gun. So
There's a button here.
Yeah. Temporarily, he was given his gun back. After looking into his background and all of the issues, the police would approach his home on February 8th, 2012, which is the next day, and knock on the door in the early morning. I forget what time it was, but it was super early.
Yeah, like
try to catch you off guard, right?
Yeah.
So he would answer the door in only his boxers with a knife tucked into his boxers.
That seems like a bad idea.
Almost as bad as stuffing your gun into your front of your crotch. Like,
that's not a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a knife.
So they would take Angus into custody under Section 28 of the Mental Health Act and would take both his knife and his rifle at that time. I
Now,
guess the
are
knife because
we?
it was on his body.
Is this a euphemism? His rifle, or is it actual rifle?
Actual Mossberg
Okay,
30
all
aught
right,
6, yes.
all right.
Also his other rifle, but yeah.
Should have.
He would be transferred to Royal Jubilee Hospital in Victoria for his assessment.
Okay.
The doctor that saw him would review all of the information about this case and assess that he was at risk of killing himself and was given a 48-hour hold.
I feel like while you're doing that, I feel like guys like him see the 48 hours and they're like, nap time.
Yeah,
And then they
right.
just get out.
Part of it's like just men. I didn't write it down. I forgot to write it down, but men that are dealing with this kind of mental health break often are more likely to kill themselves than women for some reason, they find. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they said, at least in the 2010s.
Mhm.
I don't know. So 9 hours later, he would be seen by a psychologist, and it would be diagnosed with, quote, a major mental illness, depression, schizophrenia, and substance abuse. He was also diagnosed with a personality disorder. In his opinion, Mr. Mitchell's issues were chronic and not something to be treated in an acute hospital setting. His conclusion was that Mr. Mitchell would benefit from long-term psychotherapy, but that it would require his voluntary involvement. He deemed him not certifiable under the criteria of the Mental Health Act. Therefore, he did not sign a second Form 4, which would have kept him in hospital for up to 30 days by law. So Mr. Mitchell was discharged from the hospital after his 48 hours.
You literally wrote a Skittles bag worth of diagnoses.
Yeah.
And then you said, eh.
But the problem is that the way the Mental Health Act is written, like it's not easy to, how do I say it, to certify someone in a way that puts them away for 30 days without it being voluntary easily, because they don't want you just locking people up for 30 days with no cause, right? I mean, if it was easy, they would just throw anyone in jail for 30 days, right? Like, or this is in a hospital, but yes.
Did they even ask him, or did they just let him? They might probably doesn't.
Oh, they definitely tried to get him,
it,
but he wasn't willing to be committed
But
for
of
30
course
days.
not. Of course
That's
not.
not right. Well, unfortunately, I've known people that have had serious mental health issues, and they often don't realize they have those issues.
See,
They'll take their medicine for a certain amount of time, feel better, and stop because I'm better now, right?
Yeah,
And that's not the way it works.
It's like those situations though, where you have to really take into account their frame of mind as a
Yes.
professional and say they might not voluntarily do this, but I don't care. Have like a conference with 5 other mental health professionals, run the case by them, and then if they all sign off on the fact that they need to be away for 30 days, then it happens. Like put something there so it can happen. So it's not so easy, but
and this
like,
might have changed since then, but this was the case at the time. The first doctor would see them and sign this Form 4, and then a psychiatrist would see them shortly after, assess them again, and if they agreed, and it was under the legal definitions, they would sign the second form, and then they would be committed. But if it didn't meet all of the legal requirements, it had to be voluntary. And it just didn't meet all of those requirements. So once he was released from the hospital, Angus would call the officer that was conducting the investigation into him and demand his knife and gun back.
Yeah.
This is a quote from the coroner's inquest that was done later. Under the criminal code, the seized firearm would need to be returned to its owner 30 days following its seizure, or an application for forfeiture and prohibition of the firearm would have to be made in court. The officer sought advice from her superior and from the National Weapons Enforcement Team, NWEST. She received some guidance in an emailed response, however. She testified that the picture painted was that she would likely not be successful in the application to keep Mr. Mitchell from receiving his gun back. Factors such as Mr. Mitchell's discharge from the hospital and lack of convictions would be hurdles in proving her case. Mr. Mitchell's firearm license had been frozen by the office of the firearms officer as soon as it was learned that he had been apprehended under the Mental Health Act. On April 19th, 2012, they were contacted by the Victoria Police and were asked to release their hold. Mr. Mitchell received his rifle back from Victoria Police on April 20th, 2012. Fucking crazy. So even when you have crazy, like really pretty good gun laws, things still are stupid.
Yep. Yep.
This gun should never been given back to him. His license should never been unfrozen, probably, or it should have been after he proved that his mental health was under control before they gave it back to him. Not while he's still
in a break.
Totally out of it. Totally in a break. 100%. And he's been in a break for a very long time. So sometime between April 20th and May 27th, 2012, Angus would end up back in Metro Vancouver on the mainland. We know this because things escalated terribly on May 27th. May 27th was like any other day at Royal Oak Sushi House with a busy dinner rush. The restaurant closed at 9 p.m., but often there are customers that straggle out, and then there's the cleanup and closing that happens at the restaurant. You know, you got to deal with the cleaning, dealing with tills. Still a lot more cash back in 2012.
You got to prep for the next day. It's
exactly, yeah. So sadly, around 9:30 p.m., multiple shots from a rifle would ring out. The owner of the restaurant, I think it's Hong, Andy Tran, and a waitress, Chin or Vivian DM Hyun, I think, were both killed in the shooting. So I'll use their Western names. Andy was the father of two preschool age kids, while Vivian was a single mother of a young daughter. Angus would not be suspected at first of this set of murders, and he would get away. Next, on May 29th, 2012, Angus would shoot a man at his Gilpin Crescent house in Burnaby. A neighbor was quoted as saying, "I heard two sounds like bang, bang, two big noises," the man recalled. "I saw a guy lying down under a tree there. I came over there and said, 'You got hurt?' He said, 'Somebody shot me, a double shot.'" This unnamed man would survive being shot 2 times, though. And he just, I guess because he lived and everything, they just didn't bother giving his name out. So it turns out that Angus David Mitchell had written a list of 10 people that he wanted to kill, and up to a total of 15 targets that included 2 schools, a group home, a coffee house, and a gym.
Jesus.
Yeah, right? So Vivian was for some reason on this list, while Andy was just collateral damage, the owner. The unnamed man happened to be one of Angus's former landlords, and he was also on the list. The manhunt would begin on May 12th, 2012 for Angus David Mitchell, as his former landlord was able to ID him with the cops. His photo and his picture of his vehicle would be distributed and plastered all over the news.
This guy seems like a suicide by cop guy.
On May 30th, 2012, a phone call into 911 would place Angus possibly in Maple Ridge, around 30 kilometers or more away from Burnaby. For the Americans out there, that's about 19 plus miles. The person on the phone told the 911 operator that they had seen a 1994 green Ford Aerostar van, the same vehicle that police thought he might be living out of. The police took this very seriously, and 20 cops rushed out to search the vehicle, arriving around 11:50 a.m. The van was on a secluded road, and when the cops arrived, they tried to talk him out of the van. He would get out of the van finally, but not quietly, and the shooting began. He would be taken down with 10 gunshot wounds, including the back, chest, and pelvic area. So there you go.
I've been watching a lot of Criminal Minds lately.
Right? As soon as he was down, an ambulance that had been waiting just outside of the range in case of a gunfight rushed in to treat the patient. None of the police were shot in the exchange of bullets, luckily. Paramedics would begin CPR and start giving him fluids as he was bleeding out, and it was decided they would call for a medevac or air ambulance. He was flown approximately 30 kilometers to Royal Columbian Hospital in New Westminster, where they would work on him for about 10 minutes before pronouncing Angus dead. So, quote, He was not moving. His eyes were closed. He was not breathing on his own. He had no pulse. And when I placed an ultrasound machine on his bedside to examine his heart had stopped, said Dr. Neil Barkley. In a situation like this, we know that the chances of surviving is zero. There is no chance of survival. So at this point, we decided to terminate care.
Yeah.
Sadly, we will never know the true motives for his murder and attempted murder, but I do not believe that in his mental state, he was well enough to ever have a coherent reason.
No, I think there must have been some kind of perceived wrong towards him
Oh,
in one
yeah.
way or another.
On all 15 or the 10 people and like total of 15 targets.
Yeah.
So I actually remember when this happened as I was living in Burnaby at the time, and I was definitely extremely worried about who had shot up the sushi restaurant and who had attempted to kill the man elsewhere in Burnaby. Like every other local, I breathed a sigh of relief when I heard that Angus had been stopped from ever hurting another person. I would as always have preferred him to spend time in either prison or possibly at Colony Farm, a forensic psychiatric facility. Colony Farm is a facility in Coquitlam where people are sent in British Columbia if they have been found not criminally responsible for a crime or are unfit to stand trial due to mental health disorders. That's the kind of place this man probably should have spent his time.
Yeah.
He very possibly could have been treated. If they could get him off the drugs and alcohol, they could treat the underlying issues. There's possibly down the road that he could have been released, like sort of like the Greyhound killer in Canada.
I was about to bring that up.
I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head, but after a time at a similar facility to this, he was released and he has not reoffended since, right? And he's monitored closely.
Sure.
But it's really sad that they couldn't get him into some kind of facility earlier before things turned really bad.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
no one needed to die, including him, really. I mean, he did some horrible things, but I mean, he had serious issues.
There were a series of gates and checks. Yeah, there were a series of gates and checks where I think that this probably could have been prevented.
Yeah. At every level, things got failed from when he was a child to when he was an adult.
Yes.
And it led to 2 deaths and one close call, as well as a lot of. And I, you know what, there was even more. There was talk from people that he had known in one of the articles that I read, and there was just a lot of repetition, so I didn't bother putting them in because it would just feel,
yeah,
it just wouldn't work. But yeah, he had a lot of issues, and unfortunately, it led to people dying.
Jeez.
And this isn't a serial killer that just was aiming to kill people. This is just someone that their brain was not right, unfortunately, and they didn't get the help they needed, and it led to people dying.
Hopefully, they learned from it. The government, anyways.
Yeah, I probably should have looked more into that. I'm not sure. I hope they did. I hope the laws were changed about taking the gun away.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That blew me away.
Yeah. At a certain point, you don't have a right back to your gun.
No,
you just don't.
100%.
You give that up when you walk into a hospital with a gun.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you know what? Even if they at some point gave him his license back, just don't give the gun back. I mean, that gun was
right.
It was seized. That's it. But yeah, that is the case of Angus David Mitchell.
Angus.
Yeah.
The only Angus I recognize is Young.
Yeah, I've got a beef with the whole situation.
You know what? I've run out of cow puns. Yep, that's all. I got nothing. I've been milked dry.
I'm just ribbing you. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Brew Crime. You can find us on all social media platforms at Brew Crime. We have a Facebook group at Brew Crime the Group. If you'd like to support the show, head to patreon.com/brewcrime now. Money goes towards upgrading equipment and making the show that much better. You get one bonus episode a month, as well as early ad-free access to our episodes. So shout out to our Patreon supporters, True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In Podcast, and the Faves of Our Lives. Moo.
You stole it from me. damn.
I'm sorry.
I've never heard a
Bye.
cow say damn, but damn.
Yeah, exactly. Bye.
All cases on Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast.
When you're alone in your house, but you'd like to feel like you're not, the podcast inside your house can keep you company. Our show will make sure that you run up the stairs at night when you turn off the lights and check under your bed before you sleep. We'll fill your dreams and nightmares with bizarre birds, creepy crawlers, and heroic hitmen. We'll have you pulling back the shower curtain, just in case, and side-eyeing your closets as you walk past them. We'll bring you everything from the classics that you know and love to the strange and often silly world of creepypastas. We've even got some stories written just for the show that you won't hear anywhere else. So go check out the podcast inside your house. We're on all major platforms, as well as inside your pantry, your crawl space, and sitting at the foot of your bed at night, watching you sleep.
Nothing worse than shrinkage.
I know, right?
I was
Damn
in the
cold water.
pool.
And it was cold.
It was cold. That performance was delivered in only a way Jason Alexander could do it.
Yep. The unnamed have not quite